Hi everyone, Barry here from Mitosu Crafts. Thank you for joining me today and thank you for watching. For today's project, I'm going to be showing you how you can create your own Northern Lights Christmas card using the new blending brushes from Stampin Up. This card is one which I made on one of our live YouTube videos, which me and Jade do twice a week. So we made this live, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to just do it again for you, and I just wanted to change it up a little bit and use some different stamp sets. Still going to be using the lovely Still Seen stamp set, but I'm going to be introducing some other stamp sets as well, just to give you another variation of this. But hopefully you'll be able to learn the technique and how I've used the blending brushes, so you'll be able to recreate this yourself if you wish. Okay, so let's crack on. I'm going to go through some of the measurements of the card bases for you, and then I'm going to get on with the sponging. So what you will need is for this one, I'm going to be using the Cherry Cobbler cardstock. So you will need to cut this down to 21 centimeters by 19.8 centimeters and score it at 9.9 centimeters. You would also need another bit of Whisper White. This is going to be measuring at 19.5 centimeters by 8.4 centimeters. And another bit of Whisper White, which is going to be measuring at 19 centimeters by 7.9 centimeters. So that's going to be your mat and your layer. Other materials which you will need a bit of scrap paper, because we're going to create some hills with this. Some Whisper White just to do some stamping of the house on, and we are going to be using some grey granite for a moon. So that's that one there. Materials or tools which you will need, obviously the lovely new blending brushes, so these ones right here. So product number 153611. Currently at the time of recording, these aren't available for general use, they're only available for demonstrators, but they will be available from the 1st of December 2020 if you are a demonstrator, or if you'd like to get hold of them early, you can join our team. Alternatively, they will be available for you from the 5th of January 2021. But we just wanted to show you how they were now, just so you can hopefully get excited about them and just get a few ideas and before you make a decision and purchase. But these are the brushes right here. Really love them. Really happy that Stampin' Up brought these out. Stamp sets which we're going to be using is the Still Seen stamp set, the Mountain Air stamp set, and I'm going to be using a sentiment from the Poinsettia Petals. So you would obviously just want to choose whatever sentiment you want to use, but I really love this Warm Wishes from Our Home to Yours. I think it's a beautiful sentiment and I think it works lovely with this card. Colours which I've used, I'm going to be using grey granite. I'm going to be using, well, I may be using grey granite. I'm not sure. It depends on if I decide to do another technique. Just Jade, definitely. Magenta Madness and Misty Moonlight. They're going to be the three main colours which we use. Okay, and then we're going to have some colouring which we are going to be doing. So I'm going to be using a selection of blends. I'm also going to be using the Stampin' Up chalk marker. Very important for today's project. The blends I've decided to use is going to be the dark mango melody, the light and the dark cinnamon cider. I have also got the dark real red, and I've got a light shaded spruce. Now again, I probably won't be using the shaded spruce, it depends if you're going to be using the tree from the Still Scenes. Okay, so it all depends, but that's what I have used, but I may not use it for this particular variation. Okay, so that's those. And as I mentioned, chalk marker are very important. And another one, I'm going to be using the lovely Frost White all-purpose ink. So you will need either a dry water brush or just a normal paintbrush as well. I say dry because you can use one of our water painters, but if you've got water in it, then it may interfere and give you an effect you may not be looking for. So just have a play around with. I'm going to be using a dry paintbrush for this one here to create some stars. Lovely. So let's crack on. So we're going to take our smallest piece of Whisper White which we cut. So this is the piece which we cut down to 19 centimeters by 7.9, and this is the one which we're going to be doing our working on. You would also need to take a bit of scrap paper, as I mentioned, and we're going to create some hills. So all we want to do is we just want to try and keep it one where you've got it on the flat edge, and we're just going to just cut some curves. So your mountains and your valleys. Like that. And we're going to be using that one there. So that's going to be the one which is going to create our hill scene down the bottom, down here. So let's open up my inks and let's get blending. So I've got my inks opened up. So first things first, I'm going to start with a Magenta Madness. So I'm going to bring that one in. Got my cardstock here. I'm going to take out my blending brushes. Now you may have seen us using these before previously, and obviously these have been used really dirty, and then we clean them and they come up clean, and there's no transfer of ink at all. Even though they're stained, it's still fine, so they clean up really, really well. So you may want to have a couple. You get 3 of them in a pack. So I've used kind of try and keep one for your reds, your blues, and your yellows and so on. But obviously I'm using your green on this one. But obviously if you can afford to, go for some more. But I would say you want a couple of these anyway, at least, just so you can at least have the main colour families. All right, so what we're going to do is, I don't need that hill just yet, but I'm just going to pick up some ink with this brush, just by running it around into my ink pad. And I've transferred my ink over to this. I want to start off the page. Now, you want to make sure you've got a bit of scrap paper underneath, otherwise you're going to dirty your table. So you want a bit of paper underneath. And all I'm going to do here now, so I'm going to start off the page, and then I'm going to bring it in, and I'm just going to gently create some lines. Take off the excess, and just keep on going over that area just to intensify this. And backwards and forwards, pick some up, take off the excess, and let's maybe just go in. So we kind of want to make it look like there's some nice, lovely colours going across the sky. And we want to do this in a couple of places. So I'm going to do this one down here as well. My advice to you is just work with it, okay? It may look a complete and utter mess to start off with, but just work with it, just persevere and just continue going. And then by the end of it, you may, obviously I think you'll be quite pleasantly surprised with how well it turns out. So we're going to put the Magenta Madness to one side for a moment. And I'm then going to bring in my Just Jade. And we're then going to pick up my Just Jade, same thing, take off the excess, and then I'm then just going to put that next to the Magenta Madness and kind of just bring those in as if they're streaking next to each other. And you can always intensify this colour afterwards towards the end, so we're just putting our base layers down at the moment. Then what we want to do is we want to then take our third brush, and we're going to take the Misty Moonlight, and we're going to cover the whole thing. But this is where we now want to make sure when we get close to the bottom, we put our hills in. But we don't need to worry about that just yet, because we're just going to start off at the top. So I'm going to pick up my Misty Moonlight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start off the top and then bring it in. So starting up here and then just run it through. Cover all of those white areas. Don't go over the coloured areas too much. You want to blend it in a little bit, but you don't want to cover the whole thing over. And then just bring these down and just darken it up. Keep going over it, darken it up. And then slowly work yourself down the page, down your bit of cardstock. So remember, as we get close to the bottom, we're going to want to put our heels in. So giving ourselves enough room to do, just put a sentiment down the bottom down there. So that's about right. And then come on over, and then we can then just sponge this whole area now. We know that's fine because what's going to happen is that that's going to create our heels for us there. And then we just go through and then just try and darken down some of these whiter areas. So it's just, so I can remove that, that's fine, because I'm going to go back up to the top next. So you can see we've got a lovely crisp white line there now. Obviously, if you're going to come back down to this part again, put your paper back over. But we're just going to work over on the top. I am going to put some of my paper down so I don't get my greasy fingers on it, so I can hold it and I can hold it in the ink and I don't transfer any moisture which is on my hand. Doesn't leave a fingerprint mark on my ink. So use a bit of paper just to protect your bit of work. And then just build these layers up. Come over into the pink a little bit, and then blue and pink work lovely with each other because they then create the purple. So your blues and your reds and the blues and the Mr. Moonlight and the Magenta Madness really work lovely because you get, like I say, a lovely purple. So you get a third colour as well. So what I can do now is I can then just go through and then just intensify some of this. So I'm going to pick up my Magenta Madness again. Pop some more ink on top of it, so I'm just bringing it in, popping some more ink on top, and then same thing, and then just bring it over, and then that mixes with the blue a little bit more and creates more of a purple, and then down here. So every time you do this, you'll get a different effect. So depending on how heavy you are, how much ink you're using, you'll get a different effect every time, but they will still be lovely. And then let's just bring in and intensify the Just Jade. So picking up my Just Jade and coming in. Just like that. Okay. What we can do now is that we've done some blending. We may still work with that again in a second, but we will see it, so you can always add. So we'll do it in layers. We're going to bring in some of the Memento. I'm going to be using a sponge because I haven't got a third brush at the moment, but I think a sponge for this one is fine. And I'm just going to bring in the Memento, and I'm now just going to just sponge and cover this in black. Okay. So from the top down. So protect your piece of work, start off the page, and then let's just bring that on and just protect that. And then just darken that top part up. Don't be worried about these streaks, it's fine. But if you don't like those streaks or you're concerned by them, just go lighter. Just make sure you dab off the excess and then go lighter. And we're kind of just really concentrating on the black at the top. That's all we're really worrying about, because we want it to be darker at the top and then get lighter towards the bottom. And then we will probably go back over this again with a bit of Misty Moonlight again and some of the colours just to intensify those down, to intensify those colours a little bit more. So we can see we've got some nice, it's nice and dark at the top. So now let's go back in with the colours and just intensify those a little bit more. So I can say it's all about building these colours up. So Misty Moonlight, come back over, and then we can then intensify that. The secret is always start off and dab off first and then bring yourself down. And there we have it. Okay, so there is our sponged and blending brushed background. So let's just pop that on a bit of white so you can actually see what that looks like. It's still not finished though, we still need to do some more things. So we're going to do some stamping, and what we will do is we'll pop that to one side and we're going to do some stamping. So I am actually going to be using the grey granite, as I mentioned, because we're going to be doing the moon. So I'm going to be using the lovely mountain scene and the moon from the Mountain Air stamp sets. Okay, so I'm going to take the grey granite, and I've already mounted my moon, so I'm going to take that and I'm just going to stamp that there. Okay, that's that part done. Pop that to one side for a moment, and I'm going to be doing the house from the Still Scenes stamp set here, but we're going to be doing a bit of fussy cutting on this one as well. So just a little bit of a tip for you. What I want to do is I want to create this path. So the path which is on this, I want to stamp onto my white piece of paper. But I would suggest that you do that first. If you're going to do it second, make sure that once you stamped your house, that you clean and dry the stamp set thoroughly before you go and stamp it, because otherwise, if you haven't quite cleaned it and you've still got a little bit of residue ink on these bottom parts, it could mark and damage your stamp set, your project. So just be aware. Ask me how I know that, because I did that already. So I'm going to, hence why I'm going to do it first. So I'm just going to take the corner of my stamp pad and I'm just going to ink up this path. So that's it. That's all I've got inked up. And then that house is going to be sitting somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to position where I want it roughly to be. Eyeball it so I can see where the path will be, is make sure that the path is on the white hills. And then I'm just going to then stamp that down. And that's where it is. Okay. All will become clear very soon. But if I'd done that afterwards, secondly, then any of this residue ink on here, if I hadn't cleaned it properly, would have transferred to the sides. And that's what happened to me on another project, so which is why I've done it first. Okay. Either that, it depends on how you want to do it, but just make sure it's clean and dry before you stamp the next part. Now what we can do is we can take a scrap bit of paper, so Whisper White, and we can ink the whole thing up now. And then we can then stamp that. Like that. Okay. So let's pop my lid back on my memento. Pop that stamp to one side. And then what we want to do is we want to do a little bit of colouring. So let's bring in the... Actually, I won't do the colouring just yet. I'm going to stamp my hills to let them dry. And then we'll do the colouring whilst that's all drying up. So we're going to bring in this one here. And I'm going to take the mountain from the Mountain Air stamp set. So this one right here. I've got my mountain. I will need my piece of paper for my hills. And that's going to go over like this. And I'm going to take my memento once again. And I'm just going to ink this up, all of this up in memento. Obviously you only need the middle portion, but we'll just ink the whole thing up, and then you can then selectively edit where you want to place it. So heels in place, mounting air, and we can then stamp down like that. Remove and remove, and we've now got our mountains in the background and our path ready for our house. Pop that to one side now. So the only thing which you would need to do is do some stamping down the bottom down here with the sentiment, but we will do that at the last point. So good, so whilst my mountains are just drying, we can now colour this house. Really simple. I'm going to take a red door. We're going to have some lights on in the House of the Mango Melody, and we're going to colour the house in the cinnamon cider. Got some lovely shading on the image. So these darker shading lines will be your darker parts where the shadow is, and then the whiter parts is the lighter. That's how I would colour this. So I'm going to take my light cinnamon cider, and I'm just going to colour these ones, the front parts in the light. Just simple colouring, nothing too complicated, no real major blending on this. Just keep it simple. And then we go in with the dark, and we colour the sides in. We will turn the lights on in the house. So we grab our Mango Melody and just colour the windows in. And we'll give it a lovely real red door. And that's all we're going to be doing for this one here. So now we're going to fussy cut this out. We're not fussy cutting the whole thing, we are just literally going to be fussy cutting the house out, so it's easy. If I was fussy cutting this whole thing, I don't think I would do it. There is a die which cuts all of this out, but we just want the house. So if you don't want to do the stamping of the path though, what you could do is you could cut the path out. So I'm going to do that and see what it looks like, and then I will then remove it if I don't need it. So there we have our fussy cut house. So it's quite simple, it's quite straightforward, it's nothing too complicated. All right, so good. So that's that part. Pop that to one side, and we will then work with the next. So we stamped our hills and we stamped our moon. What we want to do is we want to now take the chalk marker, and all I want to do is I just want to just kind of colour in, just gently highlight some of the white areas on this moon. So you're just going to highlight and you're just colouring in a little bit just so it takes some of the grey granite away. Like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be perfect because obviously it's the moon, it's not perfect anyway. Pop that to one side, and you will then fussy cut this out. If you've got the circle punch, the 1-inch circle punch, which you can use that, but again it's easy to cut out, it's not complicated. There we go, we have our moon. So what we want to do is we now want to work with the hills, because at the moment we've got blue hills. So chalk marker, and we are now going to pop some snow in here, and we're just going to colour these blue parts. Just go around. You don't want to colour in all of the black lines, to kind of want to just go round those. You will lose some of them, but that's not an issue. And then just colour these in. And it then just makes it look like they are snow-capped. And then what we can do is we can then go back through, we can then just do that again and put another layer on just to darken that, or to whiten those, whiten it up a little bit. And then you'll still get those white lines coming through, sorry, the black lines coming through from the mountains. So it just, you still get detail there. And you're just kind of like toning down that blue. And there we have it, we've got ourselves some snow-capped mountains now. So that's how you can get rid of the blue on your card. Okay, so we are now nearly finished here. What we're going to do first is we will again pop our hills in. This is where we're going to want to grab a dry brush. So you can either use one of the dry water painters or a dry brush, depending on what you've got to hand. And we're going to open this. This is a brand new one. And we are just going to pick up a tiny amount, and then again, less is more. So you can always add. It's easier to add this than it is to take away. So I'd much rather do it in smaller elements. Make sure you've got nothing important around that you're going to actually get covered, because you will find that this will go everywhere and you will find bits. I'm kind of taking the excess off first over here. So do this until you're happy. So there we go, we've now created ourselves our stars on our background. I'm going to now move my bit of paper away from here because I've got some excess paint on that, so I don't want to splodge that. So now I'm done with my blending, I'm done with my painting, so I can come back to my table. What we want to do is we just want to now stick this to our bit here. Now, depending on how much paint you've used, you may need to just let this dry for a moment, just so that the paint splodges don't mix. So just be aware of that. So I'm just going to just let that dry for a moment, and then I will then stick all of this down. There we go. Okay, so once that's dry, you can probably see I've just used the heat tool just to help that along. So you can do that. Just be careful with the heat tool. If you're going to do it, it could, if you burn it you do it too long, it could bubble up the paint. So just be aware of that one. Once you're happy, or just let it dry naturally. Once you're happy with that, just pop some glue on the back of this, and then we will then stick this to the white layer which we cut at the beginning. Then what we want to do is we want to just bring our card base in, fold that over, and stick that to our card base. Okay, and then we will then do our finishing touches. So that's our card base then done. Then what we want to do is we want to pop our moon up the top here. Then we're going to take our house. So we're going to make the decision. We're either going to just, depending on how you've done it, if you've cut the house out, or you can then just snip that path off, depending on how you've done that. You can just snip that path off. Being that I've stamped it, I will snip it off. But if you haven't stamped it and you want to do what I did and then cut it out, it's fine. But you can then just lay that up and then position that door over the top of that path. Oh, I just realised I missed something. I'm going to take my blend and I'm just going to gently colour in the chimney. Then we will then just open it up. I'm going to stamp in Misty Moonlight. And I'm taking the lovely warm wishes from our home to yours. in Misty Moonlight. And to finish up, we will then just pop that down the bottom down like that. Put my lid on. And there we have it. There is, how cute is that? There is my Northern Light Christmas card using the Steel Scenes stamp set and the Mountain Air stamp sets right there. What do you think? Do you like? Are you going to have a go yourself? If you do, please please tag us. Use the hashtag hashtag Mitosu Crafts or at Mitosu Crafts, MITOSU Crafts, when you're sharing on social media, so that we can see it as well. We would really love to see what you do with your projects. But yeah, please let us know if you have a go. Please let us know down in the comments. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you've seen. Comment and please share as well. We would really appreciate it if you share what we do. We would love that. So good. There we go. The sun's coming in now, isn't it? It's typical. Got creating a nice shadow. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. So if you do like anything you've seen us using, you can purchase that from our online shop. Links to our online shop and any of our social media can be found down below, as well as links to the products which we've used can be found down below in the description. I will pop the measurements down below in the description as well, and I will try and write a blog post for this so you can see a little bit more, and I'll try and have the description and the measurements over on the blog post. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care, and we will see you again very soon. Bye for now. Bye.